Kevin Pelton is ESPN.com NBA insider. He asked the question and writes about it: is Jahlil Okafor's potential worth a big trade? Isn't that, Kevin, the big question for all Sixers fans? Is how much can they get for Okafor, given the limited amount of positive stuff that he's done this year? He has basically been a coach's decision DNP for half the season.
Yeah, I mean, they're basically going to have to count on someone believing that Okafor can still be the player that everyone expected coming out of Duke, which was the reason that, he was in the conversation to go number 2 and did eventually go to number 3 to the Sixers. So, it's kind of based on that rather than what he's done in Philadelphia, even when he has been on the court.
So, teams are asking themselves, can Okafor be a useful NBA player? Will he help our team? That's something that all teams are probably asking. Is that a fair question to ask for all these teams, given that this is a guy who came in 17.7 rebounds? Do you look at Jahlil Okafor in today's game as a useful player?
Not to date, based on what he's done in Philadelphia in terms of, his impact in plus-minus terms, which is, why he's rated near the bottom of the league in ESPN's real plus-minus the last couple of seasons. So, I don't know how much of it is necessarily about the changing league and that aspect of it, so much as, the fact that he's never really committed to being a good help defender and taking advantage of his physical tools at that end of the court. And, then offensively, while he's scored a lot and has done so with reasonable efficiency, it's not him creating a lot of plays for teammates, and those type of players have not tended to be particularly valuable.
So will teams look at his defense and say, look, defensively, this guy's not good enough, you're not going to get something of value back? Or will they say, look, this guy can score and put the ball in the basket, therefore we will give you something because we value that part of his game so much?
Well, I think that's where each team is going to be different in terms of how they assess him. Now, the good news for the Sixers is they only need one team or, maybe a couple to create a bidding war to look at him is that, extremely talented post scorer and number 3 overall pick.
Kevin Pelton is with us. Check out his article on Jahlil Okafor and whether or not he has the potential. What do you think about his fit with New Orleans? That's obviously the team that is at the forefront right now. Anthony Davis. Does he fit into what they want to do there? Do you think this is a legitimate match?
Well, it's curious to me because the Pelicans had mostly gone away from using Anthony Davis at power forward and had been playing him almost exclusively lately at center, benching Alexia Ginsa, who's been linked to the Sixers as part of the return in this trade, and then Omer Asik, both of whom they paid a lot of money a couple of summers ago. But Davis has been pretty clear that he'd rather play power forward. And I'm sure the way they're looking at it is, Davis is such a good help defender, shot blocker, that he can cover for a lot of what Okafor doesn't do defensively. And then Davis has the ability to just play outside on the perimeter. He's been shooting the 3 at times. He can space the floor for Okafor, and those two guys can coexist there. I think that's the kind of the logic they're approaching this with.
Kevin Pelton with us, ESPN. Kevin, do you see the ability in Okafor to develop into a better defensive player?
I mean, with any young player, you expect some improvement. So I think he will get better. Enes Kanter is probably the favorable comparison for him if you want to look at it that way. He was a guy who rated really poorly defensively when he was in Utah, but now in Oklahoma City, still not a great defender, which is the reason they're bringing him off the bench, and that might be Okafor's best fit down the road. But he's become good enough that the Thunder can take advantage of his ability to score at a high rate inside.
How about his offensive game? 17 last year, that's down around 12 now, but what's the ceiling for Okafor on offense?
Well, I think the big question for him is how much he's going to develop in terms of someone who, makes passes out of the double team, makes plays for other guys. Now, part of that, I think Okafor's defenders would point out, well, there weren't a lot of guys to make plays too last year, but you compare it to what we've seen so far this year from Joel Embiid, and that's probably an unfair comparison because Embiid is so talented, but, Embiid has done a much better job of, putting up huge numbers offensively in the team context.
Are you disappointed in Okafor's rebounding, too? Is that an area that's been a disappointment at the NBA level?
not tremendously surprising because he wasn't a great defensive rebounder even at Duke. But yeah, that's another area that, above and beyond the help defense and the rim protection has made him, something of a defensive liability.
Kevin Pelton's with us and taking a look as he writes about Jahlil Okafor, and they talk about the Pelicans coming back, the Sixers. You mentioned Ajinka, but also a pick. And at this point, if you're trying to work out a deal and you're Brian Colangelo, what's a win for you?
To me, getting a first-round pick from New Orleans, period, at this point is a win. Ajinka's contract, that's part of the benefit from the Pelicans' standpoint, that they don't take on any additional long-term salary. Ajinka wasn't playing, wasn't happy, so getting rid of him is a plus for them. But, from the Sixers' standpoint, his salary is relatively paltry. He doesn't affect their plans in free agency much. Be happy to take him on if that means getting a first-round pick, even if it's one that's lottery protected, like apparently New Orleans would like.
Yeah, there's a lot of talk about if it's this year, it'll be lottery protected. New Orleans is really pushing for next year. So you think if they got any first-round pick, regardless of year or protection, that's a win for Philadelphia?
Well, certainly from a team like New Orleans that, has the upside of being a lottery pick, or even if it's not a lottery pick, being, just outside it. That's, if it's something like, Portland, for example, not that they would necessarily be interested in offering Cleveland's first-round pick this year, or Utah offering Golden State. There's not a lot of upside to that. That maybe doesn't help the Sixers as much because they already have, so many young players on the roster. But you've at least got some upside with this New Orleans pick if they get that.
What if they were able to? There's been some talk that Drew Holiday is in that mix. What if they were able to somehow get him back in that deal?
Well, you look at it, and he is a good fit for what the Sixers would want to do at point guard because he's got enough shooting ability to play off the ball alongside Ben Simmons and is a really good defensive player. The one question with his value is just how much do you go up for a guy who's about to become an unrestricted free agent? But Holiday seemed to, like playing in Philadelphia the last time. Obviously, he extended his contract before they traded him to New Orleans. So I think, you'd feel reasonably confident that you're going to re-sign him. It's just that you're probably going to be paying market value for him, not get a lot of additional value for him. So that's why he probably has more value to New Orleans, who wants to be able to re-sign him using bird rights and can go over the cap to do so, than he does to a team like Philadelphia that would be under the cap and would have to spend all that money on him. It would all count against the cap anyway.
There are a lot. This game is so fluid right now. It's changing so much. How many teams? I just you don't have to list them all, but if any off the top of your head, does Okafor fit? Does his style fit in today's game? It seems like everybody is trying to become Golden State in some sense of the way. Just shoot. That the Okafors of this world, that there's not a lot of fits for him in this league.
Well, I would say the issue is a couple of things. First off, it's not so much, not wanting to have a post center. There's a lot of those guys in the league still, but what you have to do to surround someone like that, in Okafor's case, you got to try to find a power forward who can stretch the floor so you can't double off of him, and then also is a good rim protector, and that's what the Pelicans do have in Anthony Davis. Although I think those skills are better used at center in his case. But the other aspect of it is, there's a lot of good centers out there to go around. Milwaukee couldn't give away Greg Monroe last summer, and he's a guy who has produced at a near all-star level when he's been on the court this season, which is why I think he's going to stay in Milwaukee. Nikola Vucevic, another guy, incredibly productive, not a great defensive player, but has accomplished a lot more in the NBA than Okafor has, and you're not sure how much value the Magic can get from Vucevic. So that to me is, I think, the bigger issue than the style of play one.
Kevin Pelton with us, ESPN. Kevin, three young centers then on the Sixers: Nerlens Noel, Joel Embiid, Jahlil Okafor. Now, Embiid's come right out of the box in the minutes that he has played and really gotten the league's attention. But how much do you put stock in the fact that young centers take years to reach their potential and that we haven't seen the complete picture of Okafor yet?
I don't put a ton of stock in that. I mean, there's definitely improvement at the defensive end of the floor, but a lot of, the things that you do as a big man are things that are going to translate right away. Like, players tend to block shots, tend to rebound better early in their careers than they do late. Those skills don't tend to develop as much. It's the pattern recognition on defense will come, and that will help Okafor, but I think to me, it's actually like point guards, where it's so much more about skill than it is about size with them, that those are the guys that tend to take longer to develop at this point in the NBA than the centers.
All right, Kevin Pelton, we'll see if the Sixers and Pelicans can put something together. But at this point, the Sixers got to do something, and Okafor's got to be the guy, right? I mean, if you're trying to decide if you're Brian Colangelo, is he the guy that you are trying the hardest to try to do something with?
He is, since, when Embiid has been healthy, he's not even been in the rotation. If someone blows you away for an offer for Nerlens Noel, given that he's about to get handsomely paid as a restricted free agent, then you'd certainly consider that. But Okafor, to me, would be the number one target to move.
All right, we'll see how much value they can get back for him if they do anything. Colangelo has kind of said, look, we're not going to do something just to do something. Kevin Pelton, ESPN.com, really good piece on the potential worth of one Jahlil Okafor. Thanks, Kevin.
All right, thanks as always.